We are starting topic H in Module 4, and we're moving away from, not away from division, but we're adding another couple lessons on numerical expressions and orders of order and operations, things like that. Parentheses, brackets, expressions. So let's go to lesson 32, which is interpret and evaluate numerical expressions, including the language of scaling and fraction division. So interpret means understand. Okay, means understand what you're reading. So if they give you the problem in English, you have to understand what you're reading, and then you have to answer. Evaluate means answer a numerical expression, and sometimes I say equation. Sometimes I say word sentence or problem sentence or number sentence, that's the one. Okay. And scaling is just dividing by fractions. Okay. So, all right, so our objective is to understand and answer equations using fractions. Try to put that in a little bit more accessible language. Okay, so let's move to our lesson 32 problem set. Write your name on your paper. And we're going to start the first one together. Okay. Number 1, circle the expression equivalent to, okay, and here they put it in italics, right? Italics means when the letters are bent slightly. Okay, and this is the problem that they've given us in English, and we have to decide which one of these expressions is equivalent, meaning equal to, this. Okay, so the sum of, my contact is bothering me, the sum of 3 and 2. Well, when you see the word sum, you already know that that means add. And 3 and, that's that adding, 2, okay. So 3 and 2. So where do we see that? We see that here. We see that, well, we don't see it there because that's inside there. We see it, okay, so 3 and 2 is here, 3 and 2 is there, 3 and 2 is there. But then we're going to divide that, divided by 1/3. Okay, so the sum of 3 and 2 divided by 1/3. Well, this isn't divided by 1/3, this is divided by 3. So that's not it. And this doesn't even have 3 plus 2. It has 3 plus 2 divided by 3. So this one is definitely not a winner. 3 and 2, 3 plus 2 divided by 1/3. Okay, well that's exactly what I wrote up there. Does that make sense? The sum of 3 and 2 divided by 1/3. Okay, so I think it's that one. Let's just double check. 1/3 divided by, oh, this is just the flip, right? They just flipped it, so that's not the answer too. So circle the expression equivalent. There it is, right there. I'm going to put a nice big circle around it. There's our expression. Let's try the next one. Number 2 says circle the expression or expressions. Do you see that S? It could be singular or plural. There may be one or two. Equivalent to, okay, equivalent to, and here's in italics, this is what we're looking at. 28, so 28 divided by, and the difference means subtraction, between 4/5 and 7/10. So 4/5 minus 7/10. Okay, so that is definitely going to be like that. 4/5 minus 7/10. But 28 divided by, okay, so 28 divided by, oh, let's look at this one. 28 divided by 4/5 minus 7/10. Oh, look at that. That's exactly what I already have written. Now be careful. Let's look at this one. 28 divided by 4/5 minus 7/10. Well, that's it too, isn't it? Okay. 4/5 minus 7/10 divided by 28. No, 28 is definitely ahead of it, right? 28 divided by, so it can't be divided by 28. That would be flipping it around, so it's not that one. 28 divided by, okay, so far so good. 7/10 minus 4/5. Well, they've switched these two around. So that's not it either. So our answers are this one and this one. Do you understand what we're doing? We're reading the English and we're turning it into numbers. We're turning it into expressions. Fill in the chart by writing an equivalent numerical expression. Okay, half as much as, so half as much as the difference between, okay, but this isn't and as in plus, it's the difference of subtraction. Okay, so half as much as, so we could either divide this by 2 or multiply it by half. So 2 and 1/4. Now the difference between, subtract 3/8, half as much as, so times 1/2. I think you could also probably write this like this, and then do half as much as, right? Because division and multiplication are opposite, so multiplying by a half and dividing by 2 are the same. So those two, either one of those I would accept. Okay, half as much as. The difference between, so subtraction, 2 and 1/4 and 3/8 divided by 4. Oh, okay. So I could either write that like this, 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8 divided by 4. Or I could also say 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8 divided by 4. Okay? These both say the same thing, don't they? A third of the sum of 7/8 and 22/10. 22/10. Okay, so sum, so that would be adding. 1/3 of, so 7/8 plus 22/10, that's sum, adding, and a third of that, so we would multiply by 1/3. Okay, or you could write it as 7/8 plus 22/10, and then take a third of that divided by 3. D, add 2 and 2/10 and 7/8 and then triple the sum. Okay, well, triple the sum means multiply by 3, right? Triple the sum. And the sum would be adding those two things. So this one would be 2 and 2/10 and 7/8 times 3. Okay. Now obviously in order to solve that you'd have to turn either this into a decimal or that into a fraction. But you can write the expression like this. Okay. All right, compare expressions 3a and 3b. 3a and 3b. Without evaluating, identify the expression, which expression that is greater. So what they're saying is 3a and 3b, they want us to write those here. So I'm going to use this one, 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8 times 1/2. Is that bigger or smaller or equal to 3b, which is 2 and 1/4 minus 3/8 divided by 4. You know what? If I wanted to really evaluate that without doing any math, I could switch this. Instead of multiplying by half, I could divide by 4. And here, instead of dividing by 4, I could multiply by 1/4. Does that help you? So here you can compare, because this is the same, right? Those are the same. So really, this side is 1/2, and this side is 1/4. So which one, without evaluating it, is greater? Well, 1/2 is bigger than 1/4, isn't it? So let's explain. The first expression is multiplied. Oh, well, let's see. The numbers inside the parentheses are the same for both expressions. The first expression, or the first side, is multiplied by 1/2, and the second by 1/4. So I know that the first expression is bigger. Ugh, my handwriting is terrible. Oh. I used to teach first grade. My handwriting was so much better when I was a first grade teacher. And obviously it was because they had to print really carefully so the kids could read it. But now that you guys are in 5th grade, get a little bit messier. Okay, fill in the chart by writing an equivalent expression in word form. So now we're going to take this expression and we're going to turn it into English. Okay, so let's do this here. We're going to say 3/4. Can't even spell. My spelling was better when I was a first grade teacher too. 3/4 times the sum, because this is addition, the sum of 1.75 and 3/5. Okay? So 3/4 times the sum of 1 75/100 and 3/5. B. 7/9. No, wait a minute. How do I want to write that? I'm going to actually write the part inside the parentheses first. 1/8. Nope. Yeah. 1/8 times 2/10 less than 7/9. That's right. Okay. Letter C. The sum of 1 75 hundredths and 3/5 times times 4/3. Okay. Next one. 2 divided by the sum, no, not the sum, the product of 1/2 and 4/5. Okay. All right, compare the expressions in 5a with 5c. So 5a with 5c. Okay, without evaluating, identify the expression that is less. Explain how you know. So 5a is 3/4 times 1 75 hundredths plus 3/5. And we want to decide which is greater than, less than, or equal to, but one is going to be less than. And then C, 5C, is 1 75 plus 3/5 times 4/3. Okay, well, look at those problems. I can already just completely cross off what's inside the parentheses because it's the same on both sides, which leaves me with 3/4 and 4/3. So I know that this side is less than this side. Explain how you know. Well, we deleted the expression inside the parentheses and what was left was easy to identify. You guys are so much more eloquent than me. You can probably write something a little bit nicer than that. All right, evaluate the expressions below. So evaluate means answer. They haven't asked us to answer anything yet, right? We've only been creating expressions. So now we're actually going to answer some expressions, which is nice. Remember, do you remember PEMDAS? I'm going to just write that down here just in case. PEMDAS. So this is our order of operations. And we start with parentheses. Anything inside parentheses goes first. Then exponents. Then any multiplication and division. And finally, any addition or subtraction. Okay. Right. Okay. All right, so anything inside parentheses goes first, right? PEMDAS. So 9 minus 5 is 4. Then we're going to divide by 1/3. Okay. So we went from parentheses straight to division because there were no exponents or multiplication. And I know that the answer to 4 divided by 1/3, if I want to draw my tape diagram, I can. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to cut it into thirds. How many times does that fit? 12 times. Okay, there are 12 of these. Next one. First of all, anything inside parentheses goes first, right? Parentheses first, PEMDAS. So 2 times 1/4. That's easy. 2 times 1/4 would be 2/4, right? And then I can multiply by 5/3. So 2 times 1/4 is 2/4. Now I can just multiply straight across. 5 times 2 is 10. And 3 times 4 is 12. And I can even simplify that to 5/6. Okay. Let me show you in big red letters what would happen if I did it the other way. If I multiplied 5/3 times 2 outside the parentheses, I would get 10/3, and then times 1/4. My answer would be 10/12. Oh, well, that's a bad example because it would be the same. But parentheses is the first rule of thumb. Okay, so in this example, it would be the same. But if that was addition, it would change it. Okay. Next one, anything inside parentheses first. So 1 divided by 1/4 would be 4. And if you need a tape diagram to see that, there's 1 and I'm dividing it into fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is my answer. And now I have 1/3 divided by 4, which equals 1/12. All right. Next one. These are all multiplication, so I can just multiply all the way across if I want. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 5 is 10. Times 3 is 30. 15/30 equals 1/2. If you want to break it apart, you can. If you want to do this, you can. That makes it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. And then multiply by 5/3. You're still going to get 15/30. Okay. There's no parentheses. You can multiply straight across all 3 numbers if you want. Half as much as 3/4 times 2/10. Okay, now the evaluation gets a little trickier when they start throwing in language there. So half as much as, which means 3/4 times, and I'm going to go ahead and convert this right away. 2/10, which would be the same as 2/10, right? 2/10. And then half as much as means I can divide the whole thing by 2, right? Or, because that's a little bit complicated, or I can divide the whole thing by 2, right? So, inside parentheses first. 6/40. And you know what? I want to make that smaller immediately. So let's just go ahead and already simplify it before we get to the division. So I'm going to divide this by 2 and get 3/20. Okay. Now I have 3/20 divided by 2. Well, no, sorry. I didn't want to do that. Forget that I did that. Let's just go ahead and divide by 2. Okay. Well, 6/20 or 6/40 divided by 2 would just be 3/40. Okay. Which is why if I had simplified it, that would not have worked out. It would have been 1.5/20. All right, next one. 3 times as much as the quotient means division, of 2.4 divided by 6/10. 3 times as much as the quotient of 2. Okay, so now here I've written it out. This is where you're going to have the most trouble converting this into an expression. Be careful. So anything inside parentheses goes first. And I'm actually going to rewrite that as a decimal. Okay. Do you see how I did that? So 24 divided by 6 equals 4. And now I just have 3 times 4, so I have to bring that down, equals 12. All right. Choose an expression below that matches the story problem and write it in the blank. Okay, so it's sort of like a word bank, but it's an expression bank. Okay, choose an expression below that matches the story problem and write it in the blank. Farmer Green picked 20 carrots. He cooked 2/3 of them. So here's his 20, and he cooked 2/3 of them. So there's his 2/3 that he cooked. Okay. Then gave 5 to his rabbits. Write the expression that tells how many carrots he had left. So we want to figure out this number here. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Well, 20 times 2/3 is going to tell us how many this was. And then we're going to subtract 5, and that should give us this answer, right? So which one of these matches that? 2/3 times, no, well that's not going to work. It's definitely not that one. 2/3 times 20 minus 2/3 times 5. Well, why the 2/3 here? I don't know why. 2/3 times 20 minus 5. I think that one will work. I mean, we flipped it around, but it's the same part, right? It's the same problem. So I think actually, okay, even though I wrote it like this, the one they wrote is 2/3 times 20, because with multiplication you can flip them back and forth, right? And then minus 5. They did not put parentheses in theirs. I put it in mine, so it just makes it a little bit easier to read. But you don't need parentheses because if we're following PEMDAS, you would do the multiplication before the subtraction anyway, right? Multiplication and then addition, then subtraction. So, okay. I think my tape diagram actually helped there. Farmer Green picked 20 carrots. 20. He cooked 5 of them and then gave 2/3 of the remaining to his rabbits. Write the expression that tells how many carrots the rabbits will get. How many will they get? What does 2/3 equal? So, but it's 2/3 of the remaining. So we're going to have to subtract that 5 and get that out of here, right? And then we can multiply whatever's left, right, which is 15, times 2/3. And that's going to give us our answer. So let's see which expression matches that. Okay, 20 minus 5, that's essential, so they put that here. And then 2/3. Now because it's multiplication, theirs is flipped over, 2/3 times 20 minus 5, right? But it's still the same problem. So this is the answer here, and this is the answer here, which is this one and this one. Now, I have a suggestion for you. Just like I did it, I tried to figure out my own expression first and then found which one of their expressions matched that. I think that's probably a good strategy. Okay, then you can go do your exit ticket. Be careful. This is a standard we haven't covered for a while, and here's a good opportunity to bring up your grade in this standard. Okay, expressions. Write an equivalent expression in numerical form. So you're going to read this, and you're going to turn it into a written, a numerical expression with numbers. Then you're going to write these expressions in words. Be careful, there are 2 of them. Then you are going to compare less than, greater than, okay? From number 2, which one is greater? I can give you a hint. Look inside their parentheses. Okay? Then go back and finish your homework, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.